Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about villains in Japanese anime, we often think of characters driven by pure evil, hunger for power, or endless destruction. But Vinland Saga does something different. It gives us Askeladd, a man who wears the face of a villain, speaks like a criminal, fights like a demon, yet thinks like a king. His story is not about good versus evil. It is about survival, identity, and the unbearable weight of history. Askeladd's origins are the emotional and philosophical core of his entire character, and understanding them is essential to understanding why he becomes the most complex figure in Vinland Saga. He is born into a world that immediately rejects him, not because of his actions, but because of who he is. His real name, Lucius Artorius Castus, already carries symbolic weight. It connects him to ancient legends, to King Arthur, to a lost ideal of justice and rightful kingship. But instead of being born into nobility or honor, he is born into slavery, cruelty, and contradiction. From his first breath, Askeladd exists between two worlds that both refuse to fully accept him. His mother is a Welsh slave woman, gentle, broken, and deeply traumatized by the violence she has endured. She tells him stories of Artorius, a heroic figure who will one day save their people. To her, these stories are hope. To young Askeladd, they are survival. These legends become the only light in an otherwise dark childhood. In Japanese anime terms, this is the classic seed of motivation, the dream or belief that keeps a child alive when reality offers nothing but pain. However, unlike many anime protagonists, Askeladd's dream is never pure or simple. It is fragile, constantly attacked by the brutal world around him. His father is a Danish warrior, a man who represents everything Askeladd will come to despise: arrogance, cruelty, and blind domination. This man does not see Askeladd as a son, but as a byproduct of conquest. There is no love, no guidance, no pride, only ownership. This relationship teaches Askeladd a harsh truth very early in life: blood does not guarantee belonging. In anime storytelling, this creates a powerful internal fracture. Askeladd is technically part Danish, yet emotionally and spiritually opposed to everything the Danes stand for. This inner conflict becomes the engine that drives all his future decisions. As a child, Askeladd watches his mother slowly lose her grip on reality. Her hope turns into delusion, and her stories become desperate prayers rather than comforting tales. This deeply scars him. He learns that ideals alone cannot protect the weak. Dreams do not stop swords. Hope does not break chains. This realization hardens him, but it also sharpens him. Unlike many characters who respond to trauma with rage alone, Askeladd responds with intelligence. He begins to observe, analyze, and understand the systems of power that rule the world. The moment Askeladd kills his father is not just an act of revenge, it is a moment of awakening. In anime terms, this is his irreversible turning point. By killing his father, he symbolically rejects the Danish world that created him through violence. But he does not become free. Instead, he realizes something terrifying: to survive, he must become what he hates. This is where Askeladd's complexity truly begins. He does not believe the world can be changed through purity or heroism. He believes it can only be manipulated, controlled, and redirected by those who understand its ugliness. Askeladd chooses to wear the mask of a villain because it is the only mask that allows him to move freely. He joins Viking mercenaries, not because he loves war, but because war is the language of power. In Japanese anime, many characters gain strength to protect others. Askeladd gains strength to endure reality. He understands that emotions are weaknesses on the battlefield, so he buries his pain under sarcasm, cruelty, and calculated brutality. This is not mindless evil, it is strategy. His mixed heritage becomes both his curse and his greatest weapon. Because he belongs nowhere, he can move everywhere. Because he believes in nothing purely, he can manipulate everything. Askeladd learns how leaders think, how warriors follow, and how fear shapes decisions. He does not seek glory like other Vikings. He seeks leverage. This sets him apart immediately. While others fight for honor, he fights for control. While others chase Valhalla, he plays chess with kingdoms. What makes Askeladd's origins so powerful is that they do not excuse his actions, but they explain them. Vinland Saga does not ask the audience to forgive Askeladd, it asks us to understand him. His childhood teaches him that morality is a luxury the weak cannot afford. This belief becomes the tragic flaw that defines his life. He wants to protect Wales, his mother's people, but he believes the only way to do so is through deception, bloodshed, and sacrifice. In anime storytelling, Villains often represent what happens when the world fails a child. Askeladd is the perfect example of this theme executed at its highest level. He is not born cruel. He is shaped by cruelty. He is not born manipulative. He becomes manipulative because honesty offers no protection. Every decision he makes as an adult can be traced back to a childhood where kindness led to suffering and ideals led to madness. Askeladd's origin story also explains why he despises Viking culture while leading Vikings himself. He sees through their myths, their obsession with glory, and their worship of violence. To him, these are tools to be used, not beliefs to be followed. This hypocrisy is intentional. He embraces contradiction because the world itself is contradictory. In anime terms, Askeladd is not a villain who lost his way, he is a man who never believed the path was righteous to begin with. Ultimately, Askeladd's origins turn him into something rare in Japanese anime, a character whose intelligence is born from suffering, whose cruelty is a shield, and whose loyalty is buried deep beneath layers of betrayal. He is not fighting for conquest or fame. He is fighting against history itself, using the only weapons he believes actually work. His childhood does not just shape his personality, it defines his philosophy. And once you understand where Askeladd comes from, every cruel smile, every calculated betrayal, and every shocking decision suddenly makes terrifying sense. Askeladd's rise as a leader among Viking mercenaries is one of the most fascinating studies of power in Japanese anime storytelling, because it is built not on strength alone, but on intellect, manipulation, and psychological dominance. Unlike traditional warriors who earn respect through brute force and battlefield glory, Askeladd earns control by understanding people better than they understand themselves. This makes him terrifying, not because he is the strongest, but because he is always several moves ahead of everyone else. From the moment he takes command, it becomes clear that Askeladd does not lead like a Viking. He does not inspire his men with speeches about honor or Valhalla. Instead, he understands their greed, fear, and desire for survival. He gives them exactly what they want: loot, victories, and the illusion of freedom. In anime terms, Askeladd functions more like a mastermind antagonist than a frontline fighter. He lets others believe they are choosing him, while in reality, he is carefully shaping every outcome. What truly sets Askeladd apart is his ability to weaponize chaos. War, for him, is not about conquest, it is about opportunity. He uses instability to gain leverage, playing kingdoms against each other while keeping his own hands seemingly clean. This is especially evident in his interactions with Danish leadership. While others bow to kings and generals, Askeladd studies them, identifies their weaknesses, and exploits them without mercy. He understands that power is not held by those who shout the loudest, but by those who control information and timing. Askeladd's leadership style is ruthless but effective. He punishes betrayal swiftly, not out of rage, but to maintain structure. His men may hate him, but they fear losing him more than they fear death. This dynamic is crucial. In Japanese anime, fear-based leadership often collapses, but Askeladd balances fear with results. He keeps his band alive in a world where survival is never guaranteed. This makes him indispensable. His men tolerate his cruelty because it comes with victory. His relationship with Thorfinn further reveals his manipulative genius. Askeladd recognizes Thorfinn not just as a dangerous fighter, but as a tool shaped by trauma. He exploits Thorfinn's desire for revenge, dangling the promise of a duel like a leash. This is not mindless cruelty, it is calculated control. Askeladd understands that Thorfinn's hatred gives him purpose, and he uses that purpose to direct him like a weapon. In anime storytelling, this creates a deeply unsettling mentor-antagonist dynamic, where growth and exploitation exist simultaneously. Yet Askeladd is not immune to conflict. His leadership is constantly tested by his own contradictions. He despises Vikings, yet leads them. He values intelligence, yet surrounds himself with brutes. This tension creates internal strain, and Vinland Saga subtly shows how exhausting his role truly is. Every smile he wears is a mask. Every cruel joke hides calculation. He cannot afford to relax, because the moment he does, the world will devour him. Askeladd's genius is also seen in his restraint. He does not kill impulsively. When he chooses violence, it is surgical. Every death serves a purpose. This is a stark contrast to the chaotic brutality of other warriors. In anime terms, this makes him a strategist rather than a berserker, a character who wins battles before swords ever clash. His mind is his greatest weapon, and he sharpens it constantly. What makes Askeladd's leadership truly compelling is that it is not driven by ego. He does not crave praise or legacy. His ambition is narrow but intense: protect Wales and preserve his mother's people. Everything else, bloodshed, betrayal, manipulation, is collateral damage he is willing to accept. This single, hidden motivation gives his actions coherence, even when they seem monstrous. It transforms him from a simple villain into a tragic anti-hero trapped by his own methods. In the end, Askeladd's role as a leader is not about command, it is about survival through control. He understands that in a violent world, ideals alone cannot survive. So he builds power the only way he knows how, by becoming the monster others already believe him to be. This makes him one of the most complex figures in Vinland Saga and one of the most intellectually dangerous characters in Japanese anime, a man who rules not by strength of arm, but by mastery of human weakness. Askeladd's inner conflict and hidden identity are what elevate him from a brilliant antagonist to one of the most complex characters in Japanese anime storytelling. Beneath the sharp tongue, ruthless decisions, and manipulative intelligence lies a man deeply fractured by his past. His actions are not driven by simple ambition or cruelty, but by a lifetime of resentment, self-loathing, and an impossible sense of duty. This internal war is the true battlefield Askeladd fights on, and it is far more brutal than any clash of swords. At the core of Askeladd's identity is his hatred of the Vikings, ironically, the very people he leads. Born as Lucius Artorius Castus, the son of a Welsh woman who clung to the dream of Arthur and Roman legacy, Askeladd grows up with a powerful sense of cultural pride mixed with trauma. His mother's stories of a savior king shape his worldview, but her suffering at the hands of Vikings poisons that dream. Askeladd learns early that brute strength dominates the world, and ideals without power are crushed. This realization fractures his soul. He inherits his mother's hope but lives in a world that demands brutality. This contradiction defines him. Askeladd despises the Viking way of life, its obsession with glory, bloodshed, and conquest, yet he adopts it fully. He becomes what he hates because survival demands it. In anime terms, this is the tragic irony of his character: the man who longs for a savior becomes a demon instead. He wears the mask of a ruthless mercenary not because he enjoys it, but because it allows him to endure and operate within a hostile world. Askeladd's intelligence is not just tactical, it is psychological. He understands people because he understands pain. His sarcasm, cruelty, and manipulation are defense mechanisms, tools he uses to keep emotional distance. He cannot afford vulnerability. Caring openly would expose his weakness and threaten his long-term goal of protecting Wales. This emotional isolation makes him appear cold, but in reality, he is constantly burdened by the weight of his choices. Every betrayal is calculated, but none are painless. His relationship with Thorfinn reflects this inner struggle. Askeladd sees himself in Thorfinn, a child shaped by violence, driven by hatred, robbed of innocence. He mocks Thorfinn, manipulates him, and uses him, yet he also trains him, challenges him, and keeps him alive. This duality is deeply unsettling. In anime storytelling, such relationships blur the line between mentor and villain, forcing the audience to confront uncomfortable truths. Askeladd is both shaping and destroying Thorfinn, just as the world once shaped and destroyed him. Askeladd's hidden identity as a protector of Wales reveals his true motivation. Unlike typical anime villains who seek domination, his goal is preservation. He wants to shield his mother's homeland from annihilation, even if it means staining his hands with blood. This self-imposed role isolates him completely. He cannot share his dream with his men, nor can he seek redemption. He accepts that history will remember him as a monster, and he embraces that fate if it means fulfilling his duty. This acceptance is what makes Askeladd tragic. He does not believe he deserves peace or salvation. In his mind, he crossed that line long ago. His self-awareness is brutal. He knows that he has become the villain of his own story, yet he continues forward without hesitation. In anime, such characters often meet powerful ends because they carry the full weight of their choices. Askeladd is not delusional, he is painfully honest about who he is. Ultimately, Askeladd's inner conflict is the engine that drives Vinland Saga's moral complexity. He exists in the gray space between hero and villain, proving that survival in a cruel world often demands becoming something terrible. His hidden identity does not excuse his actions, but it explains them, forcing the audience to wrestle with uncomfortable questions about morality, responsibility, and sacrifice. Askeladd is not a man seeking redemption, He is a man who sacrifices himself emotionally and morally so that something else might survive. That is what makes him unforgettable in the landscape of Japanese anime. Askeladd's final choices and lasting legacy cement him as one of the most unforgettable figures in Japanese anime, not because of how much power he held, but because of how consciously he chose his end. In Vinland Saga, his conclusion is not a sudden twist or a meaningless death, it is the final, deliberate move of a man who has been planning for this moment his entire life. Every lie, every betrayal, every ruthless decision leads him toward a single purpose: protecting what little he truly loves, even if it costs him everything. When Askeladd becomes entangled in the political struggle surrounding Prince Canute, his role shifts from mercenary leader to kingmaker. This transition reveals the full depth of his strategic genius. Askeladd recognizes Canute's transformation from a fragile, fearful prince into a leader capable of carrying the weight of a nation. In anime terms, Askeladd does not seek to become the hero himself, he creates one. He understands that his own hands are too stained with blood to build a peaceful future, but Canute still have a chance. This realization shapes his final strategy. Askeladd's decision to provoke his own execution is one of the most powerful moments in Vinland Saga. By assassinating King Sweyn in front of the court, he forces Canute into a position where he must act decisively. Askeladd knows exactly how the story will end for him. He chooses to die as a villain so that Canute can rise as a king. In anime storytelling, this is the ultimate sacrificial move, a character who controls his own narrative by deciding how it ends. Askeladd refuses to be dragged down by fate, instead, he shapes fate with his death. This moment also reveals Askeladd's acceptance of who he is. He does not beg for forgiveness or try to justify his actions. He does not ask to be remembered kindly. He embraces the role of the monster because it serves a greater purpose. His calm demeanor in his final moments shows a man at peace with his choices, even if those choices were cruel. In a world obsessed with honor, Askeladd defines his own version of it, one rooted in responsibility rather than pride. Askeladd's death leaves a profound impact on Thorfinn. The man Thorfinn hated, chased, and lived for is suddenly gone, leaving behind emptiness instead of satisfaction. This is one of Vinland Saga's most brutal truths: revenge does not heal, it hollows you out. Askeladd's final lesson to Thorfinn is not spoken, it is felt. By denying Thorfinn a glorious duel or a meaningful victory, Askeladd forces him to confront the futility of his obsession. In anime terms, this is narrative cruelty done with purpose, it breaks the protagonist so he can eventually rebuild. Beyond Thorfinn, Askeladd's legacy reshapes the entire world of Vinland Saga. His actions stabilize the kingdom, protect Wales, and pave the way for Canute's reign. Yet he receives none of the glory. History will remember him as a traitor and a villain, and he accepts that. This quiet erasure is part of his sacrifice. Askeladd never wanted admiration, he wanted results. What makes Askeladd's legacy so powerful is that it challenges traditional anime archetypes. He is not redeemed through kindness, nor punished purely for evil. He exists in between, a reminder that some people carry the world forward by making unforgivable choices. His story forces the audience to question simple ideas of good and evil, hero and villain. In the end, through Askeladd, Vinland Saga delivers one of its strongest messages: the world is not changed only by heroes with pure hearts, but also by deeply flawed individuals willing to bear unbearable sins. His relationship with Thorfinn proves that revenge leads only to emptiness, while his final act proves that sacrifice, even from the darkest soul, can reshape history. Askeladd does not escape his past, but he gives meaning to it. Askeladd's story reminds us that complexity is what makes characters human, and that sometimes the most important battles are fought in silence, behind masks, and in choices no one will ever praise. And in the cruel, blood-soaked world of Vinland Saga, Askeladd proves that even a villain can change the course of history by choosing how his story ends.